tell me I can see you again," Liam whispered, his voice rough at the edges, filled with a kind of raw, desperate hope Clara had never seen before. In that fleeting moment, amidst the cool night air and the lingering echo of their first real kiss, the impossible seemed to shatter, leaving only two hearts, vulnerable and unguarded, daring to believe in something more. What if love could find you in the most unexpected moment in a borrowed phone, a quiet glance, a whispered promise? This is the story of Clara Bennett and Liam Mercer, two souls from different worlds, thrown together by chance, and held together by something far stronger, fate. Get ready to dive into a journey of unexpected meetings, fragile beginnings, and a love that refuses to be denied. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story that touches your heart. Now, let's begin. Clara Bennett clutched her empty handbag tighter against her side, her breath misting in the crisp winter air of the Silvergate Mall. Panic gnawed at her chest. Her phone was gone. She whispered a helpless no under her breath, her mind spinning. Had she left it behind at the cafe, or had it slipped into someone else's hands while she browsed the crowded shops? Either way, she was stranded and very much alone. Clara scanned the throng of shoppers, searching desperately for someone who might help. Her gaze snagged on a man standing by the entrance of a high-end boutique. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark wool coat that spoke of quiet wealth. There was something in his posture unhurried, self-assured, that made the world seem to slow around him. She hesitated. Approaching a stranger was not something she would normally do, but she had no choice. Drawing a shaky breath, Clara stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said, her voice barely rising above the hum of the mall. The man turned, his eyes a clear, arresting blue, studied her for a long, silent moment. Liam Mercer was not accustomed to being approached by people who did not recognize him, CEO of M Industries, one of the youngest billionaires in the country. He usually drew attention wherever he went, but this woman, she had no idea who he was, and for the first time in a long while, that felt like a relief. "I lost my phone," Clara continued, cheeks flushing. "I just need to call someone. I promise it will only take a minute." Without a word, Liam reached into his coat and handed her his phone, a sleek, top-tier model that seemed out of place in her trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she quickly dialed her best friend's number. No answer. She tried again, her heart sinking further with each unanswered ring. Finally, she handed the phone back with a sheepish smile. "No luck?" Liam asked, amusement curling at the corners of his mouth. Clara shook her head, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I think..." She forgot. There was no bitterness in her voice, only a quiet resignation that tugged at something inside Liam. "Do you need a ride?" he asked, surprising even himself with the offer. Clara blinked up at him, startled. "Oh no, I couldn't possibly." "I insist," he said gently. "It is not safe to be stranded here alone." For a heartbeat, she hesitated, her instincts warring with her common sense. But there was something about him, a steadiness, a kindness that made her believe he meant no harm. "All right," she said softly. Liam pressed a button on a small key fob, and a sleek black sports car slid into view beyond the glass doors. Clara's mouth parted in astonishment. He merely shrugged, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, opening the passenger door for her. He waited until she settled inside before sliding behind the wheel. The warmth of the car wrapped around her like a blanket as they pulled into the evening traffic. "So," Liam said after a moment, his voice easy, "what brought you to Silvergate Mall today?" Clara glanced at him, this stranger with the kind eyes, And for the first time that evening, she allowed herself to breathe. Maybe this unexpected detour was not the disaster she had feared. Maybe it was the beginning of something else entirely. Clara let out a soft laugh, the kind that carried a trace of wistfulness. Mostly just window shopping, she admitted, daydreaming about things far outside my budget. Liam Mercer glanced at her, one brow lifting in mild curiosity. You don't strike me as someone who cares much about material things, he said. Clara shrugged lightly, brushing a curl behind her ear. I don't, she said honestly, but sometimes it's fun to imagine. Liam hummed a quiet note of understanding as they pulled up in front of a modest apartment complex tucked between the city's busier streets. Clara turned to him with a small, grateful smile. Thank you, she said. I honestly don't know what I would have done without your help tonight. Liam leaned back in his seat, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable. It was my pleasure, he said simply. For a moment, Clara hesitated, then rummaged through her handbag. She found a small notepad and a pen, scribbled something down quickly, and tore out the page. My number, she said, handing it to him with a shy smile, in case you ever need your phone back. Liam chuckled quietly, the sound low and genuine. As he accepted the slip of paper, Clara opened the door and stepped out into the cool night air. Good night, Liam, she called over her shoulder. His gaze lingered on her retreating figure, the piece of paper warm between his fingers. Good night, Clara, he murmured. As she disappeared into her building, Liam stared down at the small, handwritten note. Most people chased him for what he could offer: money, power, influence. But Clara had asked for nothing, and for the first time in a long while, Liam Mercer felt something stir inside him, a quiet intrigue he had not experienced in years. Liam was not a man prone to sentimentality. His days were structured with ruthless efficiency. His time was allocated to mergers, acquisitions, and bottom lines. He did not linger on fleeting encounters. And yet, the next morning, as he sat in the back of his black town car, reviewing documents for an upcoming deal, his mind wandered to Clara, to the way she had smiled, open and unguarded, to the way she had looked at him, not with recognition or calculation, but with simple, genuine kindness. Sir, his assistant, Daniel, called from the front seat. Liam blinked, dragging himself back to the present. What is it? He asked. You asked me to confirm the arrangements for the charity gala this Friday. Everything is finalized. Liam nodded absently, hardly listening. His hand drifted to the inside pocket of his jacket, pulling out the slip of paper Clara had given him. Her handwriting was neat. A little hurried, he traced the letters with his thumb, debating. He was not a man who chased anyone. And yet, for the first time in years, he wanted to see someone again. Not for business, not for strategy, but simply because he wanted to. Without another moment of hesitation, Liam spoke. Daniel, he said quietly, find out where Clara Bennett works. Across town. Clara tightened the strap of her apron, balancing a tray laden with coffee cups as the morning rush flooded into the little cafe. She weaved between crowded tables with practiced grace, offering polite smiles to customers. Her best friend and co-worker Lily nudged her playfully as she passed. You look distracted, Lily teased. Clara hesitated, then laughed softly. I met someone yesterday. Lily's eyes widened theatrically. Met as in, met, potential date, met. Clara rolled her eyes. No, nothing like that. I just borrowed his phone, Lily groaned. That's the most boring story you have ever told me, she said, making Clara laugh in spite of herself. It wasn't boring, Clara insisted, smiling at the memory. He was intriguing, Lily wiggled her eyebrows mischievously. Did you at least get his name? Clara felt her cheeks warm. Liam. Lily grinned. That sounds like serious money. Clara shook her head, her smile lingering. He was nice, she said quietly, reserved, but kind. Before Lily could pounce with more questions, the little bell above the cafe door chimed. Clara turned, ready with her practiced welcome, and froze. Liam Mercer stood in the doorway, even without the tailored coat, dressed down in a simple button-down shirt. His presence filled the room. He did not scan the cafe. His gaze found Clara immediately and held. Lily leaned closer, whispering behind her hand, I think your boring story just got a whole lot more interesting. Beside her, Lily barely contained a gasp. That's him, she whispered, eyes wide. Clara swallowed hard and nodded. Liam Mercer was walking straight toward the counter, his expression impossible to read. Clara, he said, his voice low and even. She wiped her hands nervously on her apron. Liam, what are you doing here? He held her gaze steadily. I wanted to see you again. Behind her, Lily let out a strangled noise and quickly retreated into the kitchen. But Clara hardly noticed. The world had narrowed to the man standing before her, and the unexpected shift her morning had just taken. You wanted to see me, she repeated, skeptical, his lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. Is that so hard to believe? Yes, Clara said honestly. He did not offer an explanation. But there was something in the way he looked at her, something steady, almost reverent, that made a small, involuntary shiver run down her spine. I was hoping to steal a few minutes of your time. Liam continued. If you're free. Clara glanced at the bustling cafe behind him, the line growing steadily longer. I'm working, she said, a little breathless. Liam's gaze flicked toward the customers, then back to her. I see. Without hesitation, he reached into his wallet and placed several crisp bills on the counter. For the next hour of your time. Clara stared, speechless. You can't just. I can, he said calmly. And I just did. She looked from the money to him, utterly bewildered. It was far more than she earned in an entire week. I can't accept this, she protested. I'm not asking you to, Liam said simply. Clara folded her arms across her chest, struggling not to smile. Are you always this direct? She asked. He considered for a beat. Yes. Against her better judgment. A laugh escaped her. Fine, she said, throwing her apron onto a hook. Let me talk to my manager. Minutes later, Clara sat across from Liam in a quiet booth tucked away from the noise. She still could not quite believe this was happening. She leaned in slightly, studying him. You tracked me down, she said. Why? Liam met her gaze without flinching. Because I needed to know if yesterday was a fluke. A fluke, she echoed, frowning. I rarely meet people who aren't looking for something from me. He said, You did not want anything. Clara studied him carefully. And what exactly do you think I want now? For a moment, he said nothing, his fingers tapping lightly against the table. Nothing, Liam said at last. And that's what makes you different. Warmth bloomed unexpectedly in her chest at his words, but she pushed it away. That still doesn't explain why you are here, she said. He gave a small nod, as if reaching a decision. I have a charity gala this Friday evening, he said. I would like you to come with me. Clara blinked. You want me to attend a high society event with you? Yes. She let out a short laugh, shaking her head. Liam, I'm a barista. I don't belong at places like that. He did not waver. You belong wherever you choose to belong. Something in the way he said it made her breath catch. Still, it felt surreal. "Why me?" she asked. Honestly puzzled, Liam's blue eyes held hers. "Because you are the only person I have met in years," he said quietly. "Who sees me, not my name." Clara swallowed hard, unsure what to say. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, not awkward, but charged with something she could not name. Then, before she could talk herself out of it, Clara found herself nodding. "All right," she said softly. "I'll go." A slow, almost imperceptible smile curved Liam's lips. "I will take care of everything," he promised. And as Clara watched him, she had the distinct, unshakable feeling that her life was about to change in ways she could not yet imagine. 2 evenings later, Clara stood before the full-length mirror, scarcely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The gown, deep sapphire blue, clung to her figure like it had been stitched from a dream. The fabric shimmered softly under the golden light, pooling around her feet in a graceful cascade. Tiny beads glittered along the bodice, catching every shift of movement like captured stars. She ran her fingertips over the smooth fabric, breathless. "I still cannot believe this," Lily murmured from the doorway, arms crossed as she leaned against the frame. Clara smiled faintly, her heart thundering with anticipation and something that felt suspiciously like hope. In the small bedroom, Lily leaned against the wall, arms crossed, shaking her head in disbelief. A billionaire sends you a personal shopper, a designer gown, and a full-on stylist, and you are just standing there like this happens every day. Clara smoothed trembling hands over the sapphire dress, the fabric so soft it barely felt real. "It's not normal," she said quietly. "It's surreal." "That," Lily said dryly, "is the understatement of the century." She studied Clara critically. "Are you sure about this? You barely know him." Clara hesitated. She had asked herself the same question more than once. Logic told her to be cautious, but something about Liam Mercer defied logic. It was not his wealth. It was not the power he clearly held. It was something quieter the way he had sought her out. Not for attention or advantage, but simply because he wanted to see her. "I do not know why," Clara admitted softly, "but I trust him." Lily exhaled heavily, throwing her hands in the air. "Well, if he turns out to be a secret serial killer, at least you will die looking absolutely stunning." Clara laughed, the nervous sound bubbling up from her chest just as the sleek black car pulled up outside. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she stepped into the cool night air. The driver opened the door with a small nod, and Clara slid inside, the scent of leather and something distinctly masculine wrapping around her. And then she saw him. Liam was seated across from her in the dim interior, dressed in a classic black tuxedo. The crisp cut of the suit emphasized the breadth of his shoulders, the slight openness at his collar giving just enough glimpse of him to make her pulse stutter. He said nothing for a moment, just looked at her, his gaze unwavering. "You look—" He paused, as if searching for a word that could capture it. "Breathtaking." Heat bloomed up Clara's neck. "You do not look so bad yourself," she managed, her voice unsteady, his lips curved slightly, but he did not reply, simply watching her as the car slipped into the river of city lights. There was a tension in the air, not awkwardness, but a quiet current of something unspoken. "You didn't have to do all of this," Clara said at last, gesturing at the car, the dress, everything. "I wanted to," Liam replied simply. She studied him, trying to understand. "But why—" He tapped a finger lightly against the leather armrest, his gaze distant for a moment. "Because I wanted you to see it," he said. "To step into my world. even if just for one night. Clara frowned, her fingers twisting in the folds of her gown. But why me? Liam's eyes did not waver. Because you never asked for any of it, he said quietly. The rawness in his voice, the loneliness he tried so hard to hide, reached her in a place deeper than reason. Before she could respond, the car slowed to a stop. They had arrived. Ahead of them, massive glass doors glittered under the golden chandeliers. A red carpet stretched out like an invitation into a different life. Clara's stomach twisted painfully. Liam, I do not know how to do this, she whispered. He turned to her, his expression unreadable. Then, without hesitation, he reached for her hand, steady, warm, certain. Just stay close to me, he murmured. That's all you need to do. She swallowed hard and nodded. Liam stepped out first, then turned back, offering his hand. The moment she placed her fingers in his, cameras flashed instantly, a barrage of light and murmured voices crashing around them. Clara clung to his hand. Feeling the weight of 100 curious eyes, Liam leaned in slightly, his breath warm against her ear. Breathe, he whispered. She exhaled, willing her shoulders to square, her chin to lift, one step at a time. Inside, the world shimmered. Women in glittering gowns and men in sharp suits moved through the vast ballroom, the scent of champagne and polished wood heavy in the air. Clara was achingly aware of how different she must look, how little she belonged. But Liam never once let go of her hand. He was a steady anchor in the glittering chaos. A sharply dressed man approached, his smile polished to perfection. Liam, he said smoothly, I see you have brought someone new tonight. Liam's grip tightened, almost imperceptibly. Clara, he said, his voice steady. This is James Langston. James, meet Clara Bennett. James Langston gave Clara a polite but assessing look, his smile smooth but his eyes sharp. A pleasure, he said. Clara mustered a small smile in return. Likewise. James turned back to Liam, his tone easy but edged with something Clara could not quite place. I assume you will be bidding tonight? Liam's jaw tightened ever so slightly. I have not decided. James chuckled, the sound low and knowing. That would be a first. Clara glanced between them, frowning. Bidding. Liam exhaled quietly, adjusting the cufflink at his wrist. There is an auction later, he explained. Pieces from private collections, rare experiences, that sort of thing. James smirked. Liam usually walks away with the most sought-after item of the night, he said, amusement flickering in his eyes. Clara arched a brow, looking at Liam with mild curiosity. Because you want it or because you hate losing? A corner of Liam's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Both, he admitted. James laughed, clapping Liam lightly on the shoulder before drifting back into the crowd. Clara turned to Liam, studying him. So, she said teasingly, do you always spend ridiculous amounts of money just because you can? For a moment, something in Liam's expression softened. Not always, he said. She tilted her head, watching him. And tonight? He held her gaze for a long moment, something unspoken moving in his eyes. Tonight, he said quietly, I am more interested in something else. Before Clara could respond, a woman approached. She was striking tall, sleek, wrapped in a scarlet gown that clung to her every curve. Her red lips curved into a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Liam, she purred, voice honeyed and sharp. I was beginning to think you were not coming. Clara instinctively stiffened as the woman's gaze flicked to her assessing, dismissive. Victoria, Liam said, his voice cool and distant. Victoria's eyes glittered as she took in Clara's presence. And who is this? without missing a beat. Liam's hand slid to the small of Clara's back, a subtle, possessive gesture that sent warmth flooding through her. "Clara Bennett," he said. "Victoria Hartley." Victoria's smile never faltered, but there was an unmistakable sharpness beneath it. "A pleasure," she said smoothly, though it was clear it was anything but. Clara met her gaze without flinching. "Likewise." Victoria turned back to Liam, her voice dripping with meaning. "I assume we will see you at the auction?" Liam's jaw tensed. "We will see," he said curtly. Victoria's lips curved, a predator's smile, before she sauntered away, leaving a trail of tension in her wake. Clara turned to Liam as the distance between them grew. "Who was that?" Liam exhaled, his fingers flexing slightly against her back. "Someone," he said quietly, "who does not like losing." Clara narrowed her eyes, sensing layers beneath his careful words. "Losing what?" Liam hesitated, something shadowed passing through his expression. "Me," he said simply. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Liam's hand brushed gently against her back again, steadying her, grounding her in the glittering, alien world around them. There were so many things he was not saying, but she was not blind. There was history there, painful and jagged at the edges. He turned to her, his gaze searching. "Are you all right?" Clara steadied herself, lifting her chin. "I should be asking you that," she said softly. For a moment, something raw flickered across his face. Then it was gone. "Victoria is not important," he said, voice clipped. Clara arched a brow. She seemed to think otherwise. His hand flexed once more against her lower back, before he let it fall away. "She does not like losing control," he said simply. Clara studied him, her instincts telling her there was more he was not ready to share. Before she could speak, a soft chime echoed through the grand hall, signaling the start of the auction. Guests turned toward the stage as servers wove through the crowd, refilling glasses with practiced grace. Liam gestured toward a private table near the front, guiding Clara with a hand at the small of her back. He pulled out a chair for her, waiting until she was seated before taking the one beside her. Clara's pulse fluttered as he leaned in, his voice low enough for her ears alone. "Have you ever been to an auction before?" She shook her head, taking in the glittering crowd, the opulence that seemed almost unreal. "Not one," she said wryly, "where the starting bids are probably more than my rent for a year." His lips quirked slightly, amused. "Try 10 years. A quiet laugh escaped her as she shook her head. "I do not understand this world," she murmured. Liam smiled, a real one this time, and for a moment, she forgot about the glittering chaos surrounding them. Because in that moment, it was just the two of them. Liam's gaze softened as he leaned slightly closer. "You do not need to," he said quietly. One by one, the auction items were presented: a rare vintage wine, a week-long escape to a private island, an original painting from a celebrated artist. The numbers climbed steadily higher, paddles rising without hesitation. The sums were staggering, yet most guests seemed to toss them around like loose change. Clara watched, fascinated, as Liam remained still, his expression unreadable. And then, the final item was unveiled and the entire room seemed to shift. A handcrafted diamond necklace, the design intricate yet commanding, shimmered under the stage lights. "The final piece of the evening," the auctioneer announced. "A one-of-a-kind creation, designed exclusively for tonight's gala." Clara's breath caught. The bidding began at once, fast and aggressive, the numbers climbing with dizzying speed, yet Liam sat motionless. Clara hesitated, then leaned toward him, her voice low. "You are not bidding." His fingers tapped lightly against the table. "Should I?" She frowned slightly, studying him. You tell me, she said. You are the one who hates losing. For a moment, something flickered behind his blue eyes, something she could not quite read. And then, without looking away from her, Liam raised his paddle. A hush fell over the room. The gentleman from M Industries enters at $500,000. The auctioneer called. A soft murmur rippled through the elegant crowd. Clara's stomach twisted. $500,000. For a necklace. Another bid came quickly, pushing the price even higher. Still, Liam's face remained calm, his focus solely on her. Then, with deliberate, unhurried ease, he raised his paddle again. Clara's heart thundered against her ribs as the auctioneer's gavel fell. Sold to Mr. Mercer. Applause echoed around them, but Clara barely heard it. Liam turned back to her, his voice quiet amidst the noise. I was not bidding to win, he said. I was bidding for you. Her breath hitched. Liam. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Opening it carefully, he revealed the necklace, now his, now hers. Clara's throat tightened. You cannot just— I can, he interrupted, his voice steady. And I have— She swallowed hard as he lifted the necklace from its cradle. His fingers brushed lightly against her skin as he fastened it around her neck. The necklace was heavy, beautiful, but not nearly as overwhelming as the meaning behind it. As the evening drew to a close and the final toast was raised, Clara felt it, the shift, the invisible line that had existed between them, quietly, irrevocably crossed. The drive back was cloaked in a comfortable, charged silence. The city lights blurred past in streaks of gold and white. But Clara barely noticed. Liam had not let go of her hand since they had left the gala. His grip was steady, grounding. She turned toward him, her voice a soft exhale. You didn't have to do that. He met her gaze without hesitation. I wanted to, he said simply. Her heart stumbled under the weight of those words. You do not even know if this— She faltered, her voice barely a whisper. If we— Make sense. Liam's thumb brushed gently along her wrist, slow and steady. Do you feel like we don't— Clara hesitated, struggling with the sheer impossibility of it all. He was a billionaire. She was a barista. They lived in different worlds, spoke different languages. Everything logical told her this was impossible. And yet, when he looked at her like that, none of it seemed to matter. She inhaled shakily. I do not know how to do this, she admitted. Liam's fingers tightened around hers. Just slightly. Neither do I, he said. And there was something raw and aching in his voice, a man who had always been expected to have every answer. Finally admitting that he did not, Clara exhaled slowly, letting her fingers curl around his in return. Then I suppose, she said, with a small smile, we figure it out together. For the first time that night, Liam Mercer smiled a real, unguarded smile. And Clara knew, without a shred of doubt, that her life had just changed forever. The air between them was different now, charged, fragile, full of 1,000 unspoken promises. She could feel it in the way his hand never left hers, in the way his gaze lingered, memorizing every detail of her face as if it were the only thing anchoring him to the world. The city lights flickered through the windows, but inside the car, time seemed to slow, holding them suspended between two lives, the one they had known, and the one they were just beginning to build. Together, the city lights flickered across Liam's sharp features, scattering gold and silver shadows across his face. Clara sat beside him, quietly marveling at how surreal the night had been. She had stepped into his world tonight, a world of luxury, whispered power, and impossible wealth. And yet, somehow, with Liam beside her, she had never once felt overwhelmed, despite the opulence. Despite the shimmering weight of it all, she was not intimidated. If anything, she was beginning to see through the impeccable suits and effortless charm to the man beneath them. A man who, for reasons she still could not fully understand, had chosen her. The car rolled to a smooth stop in front of her apartment building. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Clara felt the ache of the evening ending, lingering in the space between them. Liam opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, a rare flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. She turned toward him, waiting. "What is it?" she asked softly. He tapped his fingers lightly against his knee, a small, restless movement. "I do not want this to be the last time I see you," he said at last, his voice low. Clara's heart stuttered, but she kept her expression steady. "I do not either," she replied. Something in Liam's posture relaxed as if he had been bracing himself for rejection. "Then," he said, "let me take you out again." He hesitated, then added, "Not to another gala, not somewhere extravagant, something normal." Clara blinked, caught off guard. Of all the things she had expected, that had not been one of them. "You," she said, arching a brow, "doing normal." A rare, warm smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "I can manage," he said, amusement threading his voice. She studied him for a long moment, her heart a steady drumbeat in her chest. Finally, she smiled. "All right," she said softly. "Surprise me." Satisfaction flickered in his eyes, followed by something deeper, something dangerously close to hope. "Tomorrow," he said. Clara blinked again. "Tomorrow," she repeated, laughing. "A little soon. Do you not think?" He only smiled. Unexpected. He agreed. As he reached for her hand one more time, his thumb brushing lightly over her knuckles, Clara felt something shift inside her, something irreversible. "Good night, Clara," he murmured. Her breath caught, but she did not pull away. "Good night, Liam," she whispered, and with that, she stepped out into the cool night air, the echo of his touch lingering long after she had disappeared into the darkness. The next evening, Clara stood outside her apartment building, her hands tucked into her coat pockets against the winter chill. She was nervous, but also curious. Liam Mercer was anything but predictable. A sleek black car pulled up along the curb. She braced herself for another elaborate evening. But to her surprise, it was Liam himself who stepped out, no driver. No formal airs. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal sweater, his hair slightly tousled, his smile easy. Clara raised an eyebrow. "You own casual clothes." He chuckled, the sound low and warm. "Shocking, I know." Despite herself, Clara laughed. "So," she asked, "where are we going?" He only gestured toward the car, that playful gleam still dancing in his eyes. "You will see." She slid into the passenger seat, the familiar scent of leather and something unmistakably him wrapping around her. As they drove, the towering skyscrapers gave way to quieter streets. Warm yellow lights spilled from shop windows. Families strolled along sidewalks, and the sharp glitter of the city softened into something almost tender. When Liam finally parked, Clara glanced around, half expecting some hidden five-star restaurant. Instead, she found herself staring at a small, old-fashioned diner. The neon sign buzzed faintly in the window, casting a pink glow over the cracked pavement. She turned to him, brows raised. "This is your idea of a date." His face remained calm, but there was a mischievous glint in his eyes. "You asked me to surprise you," he said. Clara stared at him for a moment, then shook her head, smiling. "All right, Mr. Mercer," she said, laughing softly. "Let's see what you have got." Inside, The diner was cozy, almost charmingly worn. The scent of fresh coffee and frying bacon hung in the air. They slid into a booth near the window, and Clara watched as Liam scanned the menu with genuine interest, as if this, too, was an entirely new experience for him. She leaned forward, chin resting on her hand. "Tell me the truth," she said, teasing. "Have you ever actually eaten at a place like this?" Clara rested her chin in her hand, studying him with quiet curiosity. Liam's lips twitched into something close to a smile. "Not in a very long time," he admitted. She tilted her head. "Why now?" Liam leaned back slightly in the booth, his eyes never leaving hers. "Because," he said simply, "I wanted to do something real with you. No cameras, no expectations, just this." Clara's heart skipped a beat. For a rare moment, she had no idea what to say. The waitress arrived with a bright smile. Handing them menus, Clara ordered easily, familiar with the offerings. Liam, on the other hand, looked almost comically lost as he scanned the laminated pages. She smirked. "Struggling." He exhaled, looking genuinely baffled. "There are too many choices." Clara laughed, the sound warm and easy. "All right," she said, leaning over. "You cannot go wrong with a classic burger and fries." He nodded immediately, closing the menu without further debate. "I trust you," he said simply. The words were casual, but they wrapped around Clara's heart, making her chest ache in the most unexpected way. As they ate, conversation flowed effortlessly between them. There was no pretense here, no careful curation of image or reputation. Liam told her stories not of boardrooms or billion-dollar deals, but of the places he had traveled when he was younger, places that had made him feel small in the best way. Clara, in turn, shared bits of her childhood, the small cafe her grandmother had once owned, the smell of coffee and warm pastries that had first made her fall in love with quiet spaces and simple comforts. By the time they stepped back into the crisp night air, Clara realized something startling. She was not drawn to Liam Mercer because of the mystery or the wealth or the impossible way he had stormed into her life. She liked him, truly liked him for who he was underneath it all. Not the billionaire, not the headline, just the man. They walked slowly toward the car, the hum of the city fading into the background. Suddenly, Liam stopped. Clara turned to him, confused. "What is it?" He hesitated only a moment before stepping closer, his expression unguarded. "I don't do this," he said quietly. She frowned slightly. "Do what?" His fingers brushed against her wrist, tentative but deliberate. "Let people in," he said, voice rough around the edges. Clara swallowed hard, her pulse steady but insistent. "You let me in," she whispered. He exhaled, the faintest smile touching his lips. "I did." And then, without another word, Liam leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a kiss that was neither rushed nor uncertain. It was steady, warm, a promise rather than a question. When they finally pulled apart, Clara's hand lingered against his chest, feeling the steady, reassuring beat beneath her fingertips. Liam's voice was low, raw. "Tell me I can see you again." Clara smiled, her heart thudding with something wild and terrifying and beautiful. "You can see me again," she said simply. And somehow, just like that, the impossible no longer seemed impossible at all. Liam never let go of her hand as they walked back to the car. The night air wrapped around them, crisp and cool. But neither of them spoke. The kiss still lingered, a silent, fragile thing suspended between them. Inside the car, Clara noticed the way Liam's fingers flexed around the steering wheel before he pulled away from the curb. There was something different about him tonight, something unguarded, something real. She turned slightly in her seat, watching him. "You seem different," she said softly. Liam's gaze flicked toward her, then back to the road. How so? She hesitated. I don't know. Lighter. A quiet huff of laughter escaped him. That is not a word most people would use to describe me. Clara smiled, her voice gentle. Maybe they do not know you as well as they think they do. Something in Liam's posture shifted, a subtle easing of a tension he might not even have realized he carried. Maybe, he said, almost to himself. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, until the familiar sight of Clara's apartment came into view. When Liam parked, he turned toward her, his expression serious now. There's something I need to tell you, he said, his voice low. Clara's heart tightened, a knot of anticipation forming in her chest. Clara felt her stomach tighten slightly, sensing the gravity of whatever Liam was about to say. Okay, she murmured, steadying herself. He hesitated for a brief second, then continued, his voice lower, more vulnerable than she had ever heard it. I do not do this, he said. Relationships, letting people in, it is not who I have been. She nodded slowly, giving him the space he needed. But... He paused, his gaze locking onto hers, unflinching. I want this. I want you. Clara's breath caught. There was no hesitation in his voice. No doubt. He was a man who spoke only what he meant, and she could feel the truth of it in her bones. She swallowed hard, her heart thudding steadily. Then, she said quietly, we figure this out, together. For a heartbeat, Liam just stared at her, as if her words had knocked the air from his lungs. Then, without a word, he leaned in, pressing a lingering kiss against her forehead, a touch filled with tenderness and promises unspoken. When he pulled back, there was something almost reverent in his expression. I will call you tomorrow, he said, voice rough at the edges. Clara nodded, stepping out of the car, the night air wrapping around her. Her heart pounded, not from nerves, but from the quiet certainty that Liam Mercer was becoming someone she could not imagine walking away from. Days slipped by, each one pulling them closer together. Liam, the man whose calendar was usually carved out to the last second, made time for her, time that Clara quickly realized was a rare and precious gift in his world. He took her to places she never imagined he would, small bookstores tucked away down narrow alleys, cozy cafes where no one whispered his name or watched his every move. And in return, Clara glimpsed the parts of him that very few ever saw. The way he carefully cradled worn, old books, the way he preferred plain black coffee over the endless gourmet options available to him, the way he truly listened when she spoke, as if every word she said mattered. But not everything was effortless. One evening, as they walked along the quiet waterfront, Clara hesitated before speaking. I feel like I am being watched sometimes, she admitted softly. Liam's jaw tightened immediately. You are, he said, his voice clipped. Clara stopped walking. What? She whispered. He exhaled slowly, turning to face her fully. It is not deliberate, he said. But people notice when I am with someone. They pay attention. Clara's stomach twisted. So, I have to get used to being followed? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. His expression darkened, a storm gathering behind his eyes. I will not let anything happen to you, he said fiercely. Clara studied him, feeling the weight of his promise settle heavily between them. This, she said quietly, this is your life. His fingers brushed against hers, steadying her. But it does not have to change who we are, he said. Softer now, Clara inhaled deeply, searching his face. She faltered. I do not want to be some passing interest to you. Liam. He tightened his hold on her hand slightly, anchoring her. "You are not," he said, and somehow, something in his voice, the rawness, the conviction, made her believe him. The first time Liam told Clara he loved her, it was not in the grand ballroom of a gala. It was not surrounded by glittering chandeliers or flashing cameras. It was in the quiet, ordinary space of her apartment. After she had fallen asleep on his shoulder, watching an old black-and-white movie, she had stirred slightly, blinking sleepily up at him, and he had said it, just like that, without hesitation. "I love you." Clara's breath had caught in her throat, but she had not questioned it. Instead, she had smiled, placing her hand gently against his chest. "I love you too," she whispered. And just like that, it was settled. No ceremony, no spectacle, just truth. Months passed, each day weaving another thread into the life they were building together. One evening, Liam led her to the rooftop of his penthouse. The city stretched endlessly around them, the lights scattered like stars fallen from the sky. Clara turned toward him, smiling. "This view," she said, "it never gets old." Liam did not answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Clara's breath hitched. He opened it slowly, revealing a simple, elegant ring that caught the light in a quiet, perfect way. "Marry me," he said. No grand speech, no carefully rehearsed proposal, just raw, steady certainty. Clara blinked, her heart thundering. "Liam, I do not need speeches," he said. "I do not need grand gestures. I just need you." Emotion tangled in her throat, and then, with a soft, shaky laugh, Clara nodded. "Yes." Relief broke across Liam's face as he slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. Without waiting another second, he pulled her into a kiss that left no room for doubt. This was real. This was forever. The ceremony was small by most standards, but somehow even more powerful for its intimacy, despite the glittering world watching, despite the name Liam Mercer carried like a crown. He had insisted that this their wedding be for them, not for appearances, not for headlines, just for the truth between them. Clara stood at the altar, her hands trembling slightly in his. She looked up into the eyes of the man who had once been a stranger, a man she had approached simply to borrow a phone. And in that moment, she understood something she had never truly grasped before. Love did not have to make sense. It did not have to follow rules or expectations or careful, logical plans. It only had to be real, and with Liam, it always had been. From the very first moment, as they exchanged vows simple, raw, and spoken from the depths of their hearts, as Liam bent his head and kissed her in front of the small circle of people who mattered most, Clara knew, without a shred of doubt, that she had found the love of a lifetime. It did not matter how unlikely it seemed. It did not matter where they had come from or what they had endured. All that mattered was this man, this moment, this forever. And as Liam's arms wrapped around her, anchoring her to a future neither of them had dared dream of before, Clara Bennett finally understood. Sometimes, the most extraordinary things begin with the simplest acts: a borrowed phone, a quiet conversation, a leap of faith, and sometimes, against all odds, they end exactly where they were always meant to be: home. Sometimes love does not arrive with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes, it slips quietly into your life: a borrowed phone, a lingering glance, a whispered promise, under city lights. Clara and Liam taught us that love does not have to be logical. It does not have to follow the rules. It only needs to be real, brave enough to break down walls, strong enough to build something lasting. Through whispered dreams, fragile trust, and a world that never stopped watching them. They found each other not as a perfect beginning, but as a perfect choice, every single day. Because in the end, love is not about where you come from or what you have. It is about who you choose to hold on to when everything else falls away. Thank you for walking through this story with us. If it touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more journeys that remind us sometimes. The most unexpected meetings lead to the most beautiful forevers. Until next time, stay hopeful, stay kind, and never stop believing in second chances.